education and consultancy at Nongu Business School. Nongu Business School is here in Nigeria, and an adjunct faculty at the Lagos Business School. So he's a founding member and fellow of the Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals in Nigeria, and he also has a PhD in Islamic finance. Dr. Jibril has membership in several global Islamic finance organizations. He was a member of the CBN committee that developed the Islamic framework for Islamic in Nigeria. He's a consultant with different bank of also an expert and highly sought after consultant. This I can tell you for a fact, and a very, very knowledgeable trainer on Islamic finance education matters in Nigeria and globally. And welcome again, Dr. Jibril. Another of our panelists is Mrs. Shakira Animation. She is the founder, CEO of Enricher FinTech, which is the pioneer Halal mortgage marketplace in Nigeria. She's also an associate member of the Institute of Finance, Islamic Finance Professional, and has about a decade experience as an entrepreneur. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Habib Oyewole, of Norrenberger's very own Mr. Habib Oyewole, who heads the Halal Investment Division at Norrenberger. So Habib has over a decade experience in Islamic banking, finance, and investments. He's a certified Sharia advisor and auditor, CSAA, with CSAA fellow in accounting, with the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Finance Institution in Bahrain, and is also a fellow of the Institute of Islamic Financial Professionals in Nigeria. So currently, Mr. Habib heads the Halal Investment Division at Norrenberger. So now that I've introduced our panelists, I've introduced what we have for you today. So our audience, please just type your questions in the chat box. We'll take as many questions as possible. And the format we have today is we'll have questions for the panelists to help us answer, to throw insights onto the topic, which is halal investing. Mudarabah is a tool for wealth creation. So for our participants, for our listeners, wherever you may be, just putting your questions in the chat box, and once the panelists are done, we'd like to take as many questions as possible. So we'll start with the questions and answer. So Haja Shakira, are you with us? We would like to start with you, ladies first. So the first question we have is that we just explain the concept of Mudarabah to us in just a few minutes. Just kindly explain the concept for us. Thank you. Haja, you muted. Please. Okay, so we'll come back to Haja. Dr. Jibril, I'll come back to you.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Dr. Jibril, would you just explain the concept for us, please? The concept of Mudarabah for us.
While my sister is trying to log on, inshallah, I'll try to explain this, and I'm sure by the time she gets back, she's going to flesh it up. Alhamdulillah, and
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
The concept of Mudarabah is a very old concept in Islamic finance. And it dates back to Islamic history itself. When you study the this conceptual history of Islam, and you look at the history, you will find a lot of elements that goes around Mudarabah. Historians have described the Prophet ﷺ as a Mudarib, while Khadija, radiallahu ta'ala anha, which is his wife, as a Rabb al-Mal, the owner of fund. So because Khadija was the one that provided the money for the Prophet to go into trading. And as such, you find a relationship where there is one who is an entrepreneur, which is somebody who could actually, like my sister, Mrs. Shakira, who can actually engage in business activity, and another person who has wealth, has money, and can invest into it. Coming together, the two of them coming together forms what we call a Mudarabah relationship. A Rabb al-Mal and a Mudarib, a owner of wealth and an entrepreneur, coming together to get into an halal-related business forms a Mudarabah, which is a partnership of profits and loss sharing. So there is equity involved, there is entrepreneurship involved, and both of them are coming together to have this kind of business relationship, wherein the profit is shared in an agreed ratio, and the loss is borne by the owner of capital, as long as there is no carelessness on the part of the entrepreneur. And in succinctly put, this is what the concept of Mudarabah is all about. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jibril. While we're still waiting for our second part, Hadia, we're just still on you, Dr. Jibril. Could you just tell us, so you've explained the concept to us. So next we should just be looking at, okay, what are the different types of it and the main element in the Mudarabah? Could you just tell us the different types and then the main elements of it? What to just educate people on this now.
All right. Thank you very much, bro. Mudarabah as a contract, you can box it together into two main types in terms of its transaction and its contractual nature. The first is called the Mudarabah Mutlaqa, and the second is the Mudarabah Muqayyada. I will explain both. These are Arabic terms, and I'll break them down, inshallah. The first one, which I explained, is the Mudarabah Mutlaq. The Mutlaqa Mudarabah is a situation where the investor authorizes the entrepreneur to run the business without restriction in terms of the type of business activities, products, location of the business activity, etc., as long as such business activity does not violate the principle of the Sharia, which is Islamic law. So the Mutlaqa Mudarabah is a Mudarabah without restriction, while the second one is the Mudarabah Muqayyada. The Mudarabah Muqayyada is a Mudarabah investment system where the investor stipulates certain restriction to the entrepreneur in running of the business activities. So, for example, the business activity shall be in the field of the provider of fund can say, the investor can say, I'm investing it provided we're going to have this business in agriculture, for instance. For example, the business activity shall be in the field of agriculture, you can see that, or in gold mining, or in tin mining, or in restaurant, or in food, or other business that is specified by the investor. Where this specification and this restriction comes in, it is regarded as Mudarabah Muqayyada. Mudarabah Muqayyada. That is a Mudarabah contract, a profit and loss contract with restrictions. Now, going to the second part of your question now, the Mudarabah Muqayyada transaction may be offered by a financial institution like yours. And alhamdulillah that we're having this discussion today. The gentleman from the Norrenberger, you are waking up a very strong product in the Islamic finance field. And we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you guys a lot of barakah. Because what you're doing today is so huge. This is one product for which Islamic finance is known, and this is one product that is seldomly practiced. So, the Mudarabah Muqayyada transaction may be offered by a financial institution to bring together or channel the investor who is willing to invest his or her fund with an entrepreneur who needs fund. I mean, the entrepreneur then needs fund for financial and business activities. The financial institution will act as either the fund manager, the investment manager, or the agent. So as a fund manager, investment manager, or agent, the financial institution will charge service fees as agreed by the parties. So if you act in this form, you are also entitled to the service fee. Now, I have to mention this service fee because oftentimes we mistake service fees for interest. They are not the same. Service fee is the fee that a provider of service will charge for rendering those services, and it is halal. Now, there are two types of Mudarabah Muqayyada. Mudarabah Muqayyada, again, is broken down into two. The first one is an institution like yourself act as a channeling agent, or Mudarabah Muqayyada, where the financial institution acts as an executing agent. The first one is as a channeling agent. When you act as a channeling agent, these transactions are off balance sheets. When they are off balance sheet, it means that you cannot charge for them. It is not your transaction, you are only an agent. The second one is when you actually act as an executing agent. As an executing agent, it is on balance sheet and you have to charge for it because it's a service that you are providing at that point. The Mudarabah Muqayyada can be done through one of several schemes. It can be one-on-one, your organization and an entrepreneur, one to many, your organization to several other, many to one, many to many, which means respectively one investor to one financier or one entrepreneur for a single specific business activity, one investor to finance more than one entrepreneur for more than one specific business activities, or three, more than one investor to finance one entrepreneur for a single business activity, or four, more than one investor to finance more than one entrepreneur. So these are the different forms that it can take. And there are contracts that are drawn up and they are agreed upon and they are passed through the Sharia Advisory Council and they are approved. So basically that is what Mudarabah entails.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vidu. Thank you very much. I'm just going to move over to Habib now. So, Habib, could you just tell us, the benefits of Mudarabah to an Islamic financial institution such as Norrenberger?
Okay, thank you very much, Abdul Latif. So, Mudarabah as an instrument of finance or investment, whatever side you want to look at it, has so many benefits. So, first of all, one of the benefits is that it gives access to capital at zero interest. So, when you look at it, if I'm an entrepreneur and we have a Rob Limar, who is an investor who wants to invest in my business, so is going to release this fund in a Mudarabah contract at zero interest, that is no interest. So what you'll be expecting is that when the business makes profit, they will share in profit. As you all know, Mudarabah is a profit and loss sharing arrangement. So it gives an access to an entrepreneur to get capital for his business that he wants to run without the burden of interest. So that's one of the benefits. Another benefit is that, like I mentioned, because it's a profit and loss sharing system or contract or partnership, it promotes enhanced risk sharing. So when you look at it, the risks are shared between both parties. So the party who drop the fund, which is the Robul, the investor, have part of the risk, and also the person that runs the business, the entrepreneur, who is the Mudarib, also shared in the risk. So this consciousness is there. It's quite different from the regular conventional system where the risk is transferred to the businessman. So where the other party goes to sleep without any risk. So it encourages or enhances risk sharing system. When you look at it also, it's a source of employment creation. We have a lot of people that have these skills, these ideas, this expertise in one field or the other. But one of the things that is lacking is the capital. So when we have these people giving this access to capital, it creates employment. And you know that sometimes as an entrepreneur, you might still need to engage the service of other people in the economy, in the society, which leads to more employment. So this is one of the advantages of Mudarabah also. Another important advantage is that is a means of financial inclusion and even economic growth. Some people they've been financially excluded from the normal, regular, let's say, conventional system, either due to one thing or the other, like not having a collateral, or maybe for ethical reasons, they don't want to access interest-based facilities and all that. So this has made them to be financially excluded. So when you look at it, coming up with a Mudarabah arrangement, it encourages financial inclusion, leads to economic growth. By bringing in people to engage in different productive activities, is going to add to the GDP of the economy one way or the other. So this continues to grow the economy. Government also get taxes from these businesses. So a lot of things are involved in the Mudarabah. So it's a way of financial inclusion and economic growth. It also encourages entrepreneurship. When people know that they can easily have access to capital, you understand, and they have this expertise, it encourages them to do more. So these are areas that we, as a country, you understand, or as a people, we need to look into. So when you have someone that have a particular skill, sometimes you hear on news or on social media that someone is able to produce maybe a keke napep or something, or a generator that use water and all that. That's the skills. So if you have people, and for sure, when you look at it, some of these things that they produce are things that we really need in the economy. And look at the big market in Nigeria. So when you have someone that's coming up as a Rob Limal, the person supplying the capital, we encourage the person who is the entrepreneur that have the expertise. So it encourages entrepreneurship. And once this is done for Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, it encourages other people to have these skills, to learn these skills of entrepreneurship, because they'll now know that when you have a particular skill set, you can see people that can partner with you and you share in profits, which continue also to grow the economy. Another thing that I would like to mention is that it's an ethical investment. So people who have in the Islamic belief, who doesn't believe in taking things related to riba, which is interest, or some other activity that's against the Islamic doctrine, can actually go through this contract of Mudarabah to get a way of financing their business and scaling up their business and doing a lot in the economy. So it's an ethical investment that gives people peace of mind in relation to their belief. So another thing is that it also provide a fair distribution of profits. In a way, when you look at it, sometimes when you take facility from a regular conventional system, you are bound to pay back the capital and the interest. So when you look at it, sometimes even when the business doesn't make much profit. So for example, now if the interest on a particular facility is supposed to be in monetary terms, let's say it's just 3 million naira. At the end of the day, the business only make 1.5 million naira. That means that facility has actually done more worse, has even made that person worse off, because you have to go and find the other 1.5 to augment so I can pay the person that provided with the capital. So, but for this, it encourages fair distribution of profit in the sense that the percentage that you agree with the Rob Limal, the person bringing in the capital, is that he's going to take a percentage of the profit that has been made, and you also take another percentage, the remaining percentage of the profit that has been made. So this makes it more equitable. So everybody ends up getting something, not someone getting worse off. So that's another very important benefit of Mudarabah when you look at it. Another great benefit is that when you look at the whole structure of Mudarabah, it helps to mobilize funds for productive uses. So ordinarily, some people have this fund, they don't have the expertise to do business, or they don't feel like doing business, or they are engaged in other things. So sometimes if they don't mobilize this fund, the fund just end up staying idle. I know in an economy like ours, or let's say generally, when money is not mobilized, it doesn't create more wealth. For you to create more wealth in the economy, or to even increase the country's GDP, you have to mobilize this fund to productive uses. So these are some of the Mudarabah, so it won't take much of the time. I think I'll be able to give some insights.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Habib. Thank you very much, Habib. Haji, are you set up now? So the first question was actually for you. Good to have you here. So the first question was actually for you. As Dr. Jibril said then that if you just help us flesh up his answer. And the question was, just explain the concept of Mudarabah for us. And so since Dr. Jibril has given the listeners a bit of an insight, so just in say 5 minutes, just give us a brief overview of Mudarabah. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Jibril, for saving the day. Just imagine the network decided to happen at that time, and we cut off altogether from this end. Basically, I would say that Norrenberger is a very important tool when it comes to Islamic finance. And I would say that it's actually a tool that connects so to say, the expertise and fund. The truth is, there is nothing like entrepreneurship when the fund is not on the table. So the capital is very important in whatever venture that one is going to. Those days at business school, they would say that when an idea is good enough, it will fund itself. The truth is, whether or not the idea is good enough, it's going to fund itself. The fund is still a very important part. Largely, Mudarabah is one quality tool, as I said earlier, that enables what would have been just left on the table as an idea or skill or expertise come to limelight, have a life, and is largely dependent on trust. People would only be able to drop their investment or call it their fund or their money, their wealth, if there is trust in the first place. And in line with the Islamic principles, Mudarabah requires that there is an agreement. In fact, an agreement that is not just verbal, that is well documented and even witnessed, as it should be in line with Sharia. And these are part of what should be considered when one is going to a form of partnership, or it's actually partnership, where someone has the fund or the money and the other party has the expertise. Now, considering that you have the understanding of what you want to do, like Doctor described it, there are two types. You could have where it's open-ended. I just want you to use this fund to do business, which may not be a very professional way to do it. But there's equally other type where you have it restricted. I want this fund spent on this particular trade or this particular kind of investment. And in that situation, it's fundamental that the person managing the fund or the entrepreneur in this situation stick to that, because that would equally come up when it comes to probably there is a crisis or something in the future, which is natural. And this is another part that we must mention in the field or in the space of Islamic finance. There is still low awareness when it comes to the exposure of all parties involved, talking about the entrepreneur or the organization managing the fund and the owners of the fund. The truth is, there is no interest, but we all have equity contributed. And it means that if there is profit is shared, if there is loss is equally shared, considering whatever template is being used. And that's why it's important that the manager of the fund or the entrepreneur in this situation sticks to whatever agreement is being made from the beginning. This is one very important tool that can bring about growth in the economy, that can bring development, where you have a connect between the fund and expertise. In Nigeria today, you would agree with me that a huge percentage of Nigerians are youth, who would always say that, of course, we can say that employment opportunity can never go round. So we all have the responsibility, so to say, to start something, to make impact. And this tool is a very effective one that can actually enable almost everybody to contribute in one way or the other. And that takes me to what I would call social assets. What means that as an individual, as an entity, we should have some sort of social assets that enables people to trust us, to be able to give us the fund that we need. So we should not always look out for what comes to us, but we should equally look out for what we equally need to put on the table in terms of social assets. So it means that the skills is not sufficient, the expertise is not sufficient. It's equally important that people are able to trust us. And we're able to, you see that most businesses start from the family and friends source of fund. So with that, you're able to now move to go into institutions to say you want some sort of support in forms of Mudarabah or different tools that can be used in the space of Islamic finance. So basically, I would say that it's a very viable tool that is capable of making a very significant impact on any economy. And that's been practiced in different forms. People have seen different experiences, and we should. This is a very good initiative from Norrenberger, I agree, and then more of this should be done so that we all see the need to go for this. This is a risk sharing platform, or let me say tool, where the owner of the fund and the entrepreneur or the fund manager both understand what they are going into, and everybody is happy in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hajia. Beautiful response there. So Dr. Jibril, I'll come to you next. So the topic we have today is how Mudarabah can be used as a tool for wealth creation. Now, given the state of the Nigerian economy, which we don't need to go into, too deep into, we all know what's applicable today, or everybody living in Nigeria. So, how can the Nigerian government now say, from experience, how can the Nigerian government now you leverage on this Mudarabah as a tool for wealth creation in order to help our economy, basically? So helping the economy at large, how can the Nigerian government leverage on Mudarabah as a tool for wealth creation? That's the question, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Abdulatif. And that was a very brilliant contribution by Brother Abib and Shakirat as well in the areas where they've contributed. And I think they've actually laid the platform for me to speak on this because they've actually explored so much into it. Alhamdulillah. Mudarabah as an instrument has a whole lot of potential in terms of wealth creation and nation building. When you look at developed economy, you don't have one, two very large organizations that makes up those economy. No, that's not what you find. What you find is that you find small organizations, tiny firms, 3, 5, 10 people, 20, 30 people there, 15, 18 people there, doing some sort of business activities. And so those are what you find. Now, what we ask is that where will Nigerians, 2, 3 of them fresh from school, or with 2, 3, 5 years of experience, trying to start a business, how will they access funds? Certainly not from commercial banks. I mean, nobody's going to give them such money because they are classified as very risky. They are classified as very risky. Nobody's going to give such people money. It's not going to happen. My sister Shakira also spoke to them about them having some social capital. At 3, 4, 5 years after graduation, they don't have any social capital. Nobody trusts them. They are probably roaming the streets. And so that becomes a huge challenge. And this is a gap that organization like yours, Norrenberger, needs to bridge for us. And one of the things we will have to do after this webinar is that to follow up with you and see how we can actually make this happen. Because this is very important for us. Now, we now need to make a strategic move to develop our own economy. How? Using Mudarabah. These are people that have fresh ideas. These are people that are fearless because they're not afraid of taking risk. If you want to give me any form of risk to take now, I think I will have to think twice or 3 times because I think I've gotten beyond that age. So, but these are guys that are fearless, young people, and they are able to take risks. They are ready to also roll up their sleeves and get their hand dirty. So we need that bridge. Do they understand what finance is? Do they understand what the discipline is? Do they understand exactly what they want to go into and who is providing the fund? Not for the government to provide it directly to them, but the government to provide it through an organization like yours and say, could you help us manage this capital? Help us develop these guys. Let them understand what accounting principle is all about, financial management tools is all about. Then help us to also monitor them. By the time we do this and we say, well, let's focus in an area, we can focus in agriculture for lack of any other field. Or look at our problem today in the area of power and say, okay, we want to conquer power. So we then focus on that and say, we are providing the fund. Let us not forget, funding is not 100% solution to all entrepreneurial problems. It's not. There are a lot of areas where expertise is actually required and they might not have, but we will build this. So we can make strategic move in this regard to ensure that we have a profit and loss sharing agreement with this individual. And we can then put those business into incubation. And from incubation, they then grow. There will never be a time when an entrepreneur will not need a rubble mal. At different stage of the entrepreneurial development, you need different type of fund injected into the business. And as such, you will need more and more and more and more money. That is one area. The second area is we've seen the area of Sukuk and what the Sukuk has done for us as a nation. And these are basically Ijara Sukuk. Whatever happens to Mudarabah Sukuk? Can we begin to look at Mudarabah Sukuk and see how we can use Mudarabah Sukuk to build critical infrastructure for national development? And when these infrastructures are in place, they in turn promote economic growth. The needed roads, the needed airports, the needed rail system, the needed waterway system, the needed boats, the needed tech villages. We can package all of these under Mudarabah investment and make them available at a reasonable rate that benefits the people and benefits the economy in multiple terms. Now, whenever we go abroad to go and borrow, we run into more problems of debts. And we run into this problem of having more debt on our hand than what we ever borrowed. I will never forget that popular saying of the former president of Nigeria, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who said, we borrowed this much, now we have a compounded interest rate of this, and we have paid 10 times over and we're still owing. Now, Mudarabah won't give you that. So we can structure debts using Mudarabah. We can structure that to develop critical asset and critical infrastructure. That's been 2. 3, we can look at area of education and say these are areas in education where we actually need help. And in those areas where the needed manpower is required, and we do not have, we can look at Mudarabah and structure it as a product to fund those critical needs. Either institutions, researches, a lot of institutions and a lot of countries have grown as a result of neck-breaking researches. And these researches have actually benefited them. China and most of the people in Asia are a good example of this. And we have seen how even Malaysia has benefited from good researches in the area of palm oil and critical infrastructure. We can do same, and this will benefit us and take us out of poverty and enhance national development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jibril, for that very, very insightful answer. So I'll just come back to you, Hajia Shakira. So how can so we've talked about the contract, and you rightly talked about the contract that it's not going to be verbal contract, but at least we have written contract. So how can such contract, Mudarabah contract, be liquidated, or how do they come to an end? Because in when you are talking about contract, you say most contracts come to an end at some day, at some point. So how can they be liquidated, or how do they come to an end? Could you just briefly tell us that one?
Okay, well, I think the a very sweet one is when you have a smooth ride where the transaction starts and it ends peacefully, most likely profitably. So at the point where the business ends, of course, that is when the contract is terminated. But of course, just like in life, things happen. There are situations where it doesn't go exactly as planned, where you have possibly a case of insufficient fund. Maybe the rebel mall, that's the investor, do not have the funds to continue the transaction. Naturally, the agreement cannot go further. And the next is where you have probably a death of either party, especially where you have it as individuals, probably the entrepreneur and the investor. Either of them dies, and there is no structured way of taking things further, which is usually a problem of sole proprietorship in almost all businesses. And that's why it's important that businesses are structured beyond just a one-man business. Of course, it has to start from somewhere, but one should always aspire to have a business structured in a way that there is continuity in the case of death of the actor. But in such a situation, of course, the agreement would have to be terminated. And another one is where either party chooses to withdraw. To say, well, at this point, I'm no longer interested in this transaction for reasons best known to him or her. Of course, at that point, the agreement would have to be terminated too. So these are various ways or various reasons where such a contract gets terminated.
All right, thank you very much, Khadija. Just to reiterate, insufficient fund, debt, or withdrawal of any of the parties at any point. So thank you. So thank you to everybody who has dropped some questions in the chat box. We'll be coming to that. We just have one more question for Mr. Habib. So Mr. Habib, how do financial institutions such as Norrenberger now? So because I'm going to mention us, Norrenberger, how do financial institutions like that leverage on the contract of Mudarabah to create wealth for investors and their clientele? Would you just tell us in say 5, 6 minutes? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Abdulatif. It's quite important we talk about that because now you look at it, one of the structured organizations in the Islamic finance space are the financial institutions. And then we have them different folds, and Norrenberger also happen to be one of them. So I'll just use Norrenberger as an example of how we do things or how we can do things in line with Mudarabah contract. So first of all, I'd like to inform our listeners that we have a product with an underlying Mudarabah contract. We have what we call the Halal investment notes. And how it works is that the members serve as the Mudarib, as the entrepreneur. Then we get funds from the Rob Limar, the investors. So we use our expertise as fund managers, and with the experience we have, we manage this fund in Sharia compliant manner. Then we give return back to the investor. So at the incept or at the beginning of the contract, we have an agreement with our clients. We have the profit sharing ratio also. So everybody already have an idea of the percentage is going to get at the end of the day from the profits. So majorly what we use is Mudarabah al-Mutlaq, which is the unrestricted Mudarabah, which gives us the opportunity to explore our expertise in the choosing field I want to invest in. So how it happened is that we also put tenor. So we put like an agreement that the Mudarabah is going to terminate at a certain point in time. So for example, now we start the Mudarabah today, we'll tell you that in the next 6 months, it's going to terminate. So at that point in time, Norrenberger is going to share the profit or whatever it is with the client. And like I said earlier, we are experts in what we do. We are fund managers. We will call our good record of making good profits. So we will always be delighting our clients. We've never recorded any loss because we try to apply and look at the risk assessment criteria in all businesses before we engage in them. So with our Halal investment notes, the investing public who have these funds can actually mobilize this fund to productive uses by investing in our contract, our Mudarabah contracts. Then we invest it for them and we give them return on their investments. So that's on one side. On the other side also, Norrenberger also could act as the Rob Mal. So we have this structured finance where we do Mudarabah financing. But there are things that we look out for. We look out for the business type, the laudable ideas, and all those things. So we do our own analysis also. We look at the profitability analysis, the projection of the business, and whatever we need to look at before we take that important decision. So when we have people who are already in business, who are entrepreneurs, who have businesses that are profitable, we can look at it because also is a win-win for us. So when we engage and we give you this much needed fund as Rob Mal and you make profits, then you'll be able to give us our own share of the profits and you take your own share of the profit. It makes it good for everyone. And this also can make us to do repeat business with you because most times we always put it at a specified tenor. So in both ways, the financial institutions are very important agents in ensuring that funds move freely among different parties. And like what Doctor said earlier, we can act as an intermediary. So maybe, for example, if you have some funds, like maybe from the government also, we can do it and be able to look at these laudable projects, then we can deploy these funds so that I think we can engage our youth and whoever businesses or the entrepreneurs idea they have so that they can look at, they can add value to the economy as a whole. You know, it is important that we add value to this economy because once someone is engaged, it reduces the, you know, when someone, like what they say, an idle man is the devil's workshop. When people are engaged, so they don't have to engage in different vices. Some of these people, it's not because they don't have ideas, but sometimes when the capital is not there, they find themselves idle, and that is when the devil also brings in some thoughts. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect, when we look at, like I mentioned earlier also, it expands the economy. It increases GDP, it creates employment. Government also eventually gets to get tax from these businesses. So a very sure way of creating wealth is Mudarabah. Either you're coming in as a Rob Mal, which gives you an access to the profit that will be made from the business, you create more wealth, or you are coming in as an entrepreneur. It will keep you busy, you'll be able to add value to the economy, and you still get more wealth and also scale up. So these are ways as a financial institution where you can come in and support the economy using Mudarabah to create wealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Habib. Thank you very much for that very, very insightful answer. So this brings us to the end of the initial discussions with our panelists. So we'll be moving over to question and answers now from the listeners. And well, before the listeners, I want to use my own power as a moderator to jump the queue and ask a question, my own personal question. So, Dr. Jibril, my question is for you. The question is, who are the leading nations who promote this Islamic halal or halal investing, Islamic finance? What are the top organizations, top countries, sorry, that promote this? I know Nigeria is still gradually warming up to the space. Financial enlightenment is still growing at a very, very impressive pace compared to where it was, say, 10, 20 years ago. But who are the leading organizations where we could study and learn a tool from? Learn a thing or two from?
Okay. Sorry, I guess, all right, I've muted. All right, so thank you. There are a number of countries that have, gone very far in the area of Islamic financing. For us, we're just scratching the surface. Okay, we're just scratching the surface because we are a late entrant into it. Though we're even ahead of some other countries, but we are a late entrant into it. What we're not pulling our weight in what we're supposed to be doing. But I guess, inshallah, as time goes on, we'll be able to see how we can grow this critical alternative financing system. Around the world today, you see some nations that have actually distincted themselves in the area of Islamic finance, and notably in the area of knowledge. The United Kingdom has positioned itself in the West as a leader in providing knowledge in the area of Islamic financing, from the most basic program to the most advanced program. Okay, and you find several universities with several seats in Islamic financing across the United Kingdom. London has positioned itself greatly as a city for Islamic finance in the world. That's when you go westward. Now, if you go to the east, you also find out that Malaysia is doing a lot. And in the area of providing both the actual products, the regulation, as well as the investment, as well as seeing, the leg on the road, you find a lot of it in Malaysia. Indonesia is following suit, especially in the areas of microfinancing, as well as alternative investments, which has to do with Islamic alternative investment. They're doing quite a lot of work in that regard. Now, Iran has made Islamic finance a single finance entity for the entire country. And as such, when you look for number, Iran is actually bigger than Saudi Arabia. You look at Sudan. Sudan has done very well because they've been able to move their entire financial system into Islamic financing, and they've deployed it massively. And one of the things that we can learn from them is that when you look at the terrain in Sudan and you look at the terrain in northern Nigeria, there is a huge point of application in the area of agriculture. And Sudan has done very, very well in that, and we can learn so much from them. In using Qard al-Hassan, Islamic Benevolent Fund, the Pakistani have done so much with that. They have an organization, an Islamic microfinance called Al-Akhwat. And Al-Akhwat has won several awards globally. And they have done so much for the whole world to copy. Oxford and Harvard is currently studying them. And they took over the fund for the COVID distribution in their country, and they have 98% recovery. Can you imagine? They had 98% recovery of those funds. Huge. And they were very, very successful. So the country actually took the entire money and gave it to them and said, go do it. You know how to do it. And they did it very well. And so they've been able to do just that. And if you look at funding traders in open markets, The Mercato market is the largest open market in Africa and is based in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. They have structured Islamic finance around the open market operation, open market in Ethiopia using the Mercato market, which is a 16-kilometer by 13-kilometer market. You see how big it is? Yeah, it's almost a city. And they've been able to use Islamic finance to fund traders within this market, and they have recorded so far 80% success. So different countries have come up with different way of looking at their finance. For Germany as a country, especially when you look from Frankfurt upward, they've used it for critical infrastructure development, like train and airport building. So the countries in different geographical region are looking for areas where they have critical need, where they can have asset-backed investment that is Islamic and ethical to help them with it. I hope that helps.
Answers my question very well, sir. Very, very well. So thank you very much for this. For the questions now, let's just for the answers, our panelists, let's just limit the answers to a few minutes so we could take as many as possible. So Haji, I'll just come over to you. The question here, I think this one you could just spend just a few seconds on this. From Emmanuel, he said, are there any dividends in the contract?
Yeah, definitely. The idea is to create wealth in the first place. That's why there's a contract. So it means that when the business is done and profit is made, there is a return on investment that goes to the investor, and of course, that equally goes to the entrepreneur. That's actually the goal in the first place.
All right, thank you. So the next question from here says that do you have any specific organization or trusted entity in mind where one could invest with small amounts of money? I think I'll take this one. Comes to Norrenberger. That's just the correct. Comes to Norrenberger with your amount of money. Mr. Habib is here. He would guide you through the issue.
As small as 5,000, you can join.
So as small as 5,000, you can come in. So the next question here says, Habib, you take this question, please. Could you share any case study or success story that highlights the effectiveness of Mudarabah arrangements in achieving financial objectives? So just to share a case study or a success story for that highlights the effectiveness of Mudarabah arrangements in achieving one's financial objectives.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. So I will just use a story of a client that we once financed for using Mudarabah. So this client is into fertilizer. I know fertilizer is a very critical input when it comes to agriculture. So during the wet season, most times the demand is usually very high. So sometimes some of these people don't get to buy enough that is required from the customer, that the customer demand from them. Another thing you have to look at is that if you don't buy on time, eventually those companies that produce this NPK and urea, they get fully booked that if you have to buy, you have to queue and you wait for like months, like 2 months, 3 months, depending on the rush. So what this client actually, what he did was that he approached us before the beginning of the season, and we have a contract in place, a Mudarabah contract and agreement, and we have a profit sharing ratio. So what happened, we got a warehouse, we were able to buy this product in that quantity, which is the fertilizer, then we put it there. As soon as the season starts, then we start the transaction. When you look at it, we, as a financial institution, we are not into the business of selling fertilizer. But the other party, who is a businessman, entrepreneur, knows the business very well. He has a customer network, and he's sure that this business is going to work. We, having reviewed his request, we supported him with our finance, which means that we are the rubber man in this situation, and he is the entrepreneur with the Mudari. We have an agreement in place, then we kickstart. We have a tenor for it. The tenor for the business is the wet season, which is going to last because when they use it most majorly maybe within 3 to 4 months, we're going to terminate it. So we financed this business, and the customer was very glad because when his own customer comes looking for this product, he is able to supply them And when you look at it, like I mentioned earlier, the Mudarabah, the value chain is so huge. So by doing that, we've actually added value to the economy by improving food security. That means that customer can easily get access to this fertilizer, which is a major input for the crop production in the country. Another thing is that we're able to buy this thing when the rush wasn't so high. And you know, in economics, demand and supply. Once there's high demand, the price shoot up. So we're able to get this thing when the price was still moderate, and we're able to sell to them also. We're not using that, because if we had gotten it when the price was high, definitely we have to factor in our own profits. So we're able to add what is enough for us to share, and we're able to sell it to them also at a very good price. So this is one big example that, practical example that we've done. So we're able to finance this client and is able to meet the customer's need. And at the end of the tenure, everybody goes home smiling because we're able to recoup back our capital and also get profit from it. So the customer, our home client, who is the Mudarib, was able to do his business successfully. And we, as the Rob Limor, we're also happy because we're able to get back our fund and also get profit from it. This is just a small insight on how Mudarabah has been done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Habib, for the answer. The question came from Hassan Bello, and Hassan, thank you very much for your question, and I hope that answers it. So, the next question is for Dr. Jibril. Dr. Jibril, this person, Emmanuel Akintoboson, he specifically requested that you take this question. He specifically requested. So he said that can Dr. Jibril elaborate on the risk-sharing nature of Mudarabah contracts, and how this feature enhances wealth creation opportunities for both capital providers and entrepreneurs within the Islamic finance framework. So I'll take it again. Can you elaborate on the risk-sharing nature
can you make it more audible? I'm finding
Okay.
difficult to listen to it. Yes.
Okay.
Make it a little.
Okay. Is it better now? Is it better now, sir?
Yeah, it's better now. Thank you.
So he said he wanted Dr. Jibril to elaborate on the risk-sharing nature of Mudarabah contracts, and how this feature enhances wealth creation opportunities for both capital providers and entrepreneurs, on the other hand, within the Islamic finance framework. So I'll take it again. Could you please elaborate on the risk-sharing nature of Mudarabah contracts, and how this feature enhances wealth creation opportunities for both capital providers and entrepreneurs within the Islamic finance framework?
Yes, I guess that if you are listening carefully to what explanation provided by Habib Oyewole earlier on, it just captures everything succinctly. So what I try to do is I will try to mimic what he has said, maybe in a simpler language, because the example he gave about that fertilizer business is a fantastic one. It has shown value across the board. Okay, so because it is a profit and loss sharing scheme, it gives access to people who have brilliant idea in business, but they lack funding. So there is a value created there for people who have very brilliant idea, but they lack funding. They can have access to funding, provided that they have good rating, which as Mrs. Shakira has also emphasized, because they will just not say, there you go, take cash. It won't happen. They will dig down and check your background, and they will do some due diligence. So once that is crossed and it is fine, then you have access to good credit. You have access to funding for your business. But they will also monitor those funding to make sure that they are deployed into the business, not diverted into something else. So those are very essential. Now, in terms of what is the benefit for capital provider, of course, he shares profits. The capital provider shares profit. I tell people, if you want to do Mudarabah, don't try to do it on your own, because you put emotion into it. Look for organizations that, like the like of Norrenberger, give them the money. They don't come with emotions. They come with strict professionalism. So they will look at the person and they already have their checklists. They will tick, cancel, tick, cancel. And if all the boxes are not ticked, they're not interested. Once those boxes are ticked and they are interested, they provide those funds. And when the funds are provided, when the profit comes, they take the administrative charge, which is tiny. You take your own share of the profit. The entrepreneur also takes part of his profit, and everybody is happy along the line. So there is benefit for the entrepreneur, There's benefit for the provider of fund, and there's the benefit for the managers of the fund. Now, the most important thing that you also need to put in mind is the asymmetric risk. There is an asymmetric risk in Mudarabah, which is the risks associated to the robber man failing in business. Now, the expert will have done a lot of work to de-risk this factor. They will have de-risked the asymmetric risk involved. So they will do a lot of work to de-risk it, which means that you have a better chance of recouping profits rather than recouping a loss. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it answers the question. And I know you mentioned, but this person, Emmanuel, actually asked the question before Mr. Habib gave the fertilizer analogy. So he asked the question very early on in the webinar. But thank you very much for your response. And I mean, you've given as much information as possible. Mr. Habib also gave as much information as possible. So I guess all questions will be answered. So Mr. Habib, we're coming to you next. So this question is from Isa of the Karim. So Isa said, so there's a situation where he gave like a scenario-based question now. So he said it's a situation where you want to acquire an asset and you approach, say, an Islamic institution now. So the Islamic institution tells you to go and get the price of the assets, and when you get back to them, so when you now say, okay, I've gone to inquire about the price of the asset, I've done my market survey, it comes up to X naira. So what they do is they finance the assets, they buy the assets for you, and they now sell it to you at their chosen price, say maybe close to 10% margin or what have you. So how do you said how would you describe this opportunity? And then does it still fall under halal investing, or is it something completely different?
Okay, thank you very much, Abdelatif. It seems what the questioner is trying to get clarity on is a Mudarabah contract. So what he explained is like a Mudarabah contract. So, and how it works is that someone that is in need of a particular asset or value that is permissible in Sharia approach an Islamic financial institution to finance that particular asset. It could also be an inventory for the business, depending. So let's use an asset as an example. So when you meet the financial institution, we have our ways of doing things. We have our risk acceptance criteria. We have the checklist like Dr. GP mentioned earlier. If you qualify for us to finance you, you understand, because you must have, for example, you should have the ability to repay back the facility. So we can ask you to do a survey and get a supplier that sells the assets. Another way around also, we can also, if you have a supplier, we can say, okay, we have these assets. But one thing is very important. It needs to be the asset that you actually want. So we can't buy an asset that you don't want. So you might be in the best position to identify the assets and let us know where to get it, the particular asset. Having said that, we get, we'll buy the asset for ourselves, that is for Norrenberger, we own it. Then we sell the asset to you at a profit. There's something very important in Mudarabah, is the declaration and the transparency that is in it. So you know the amount the asset was bought, and you know the profit that we're going to add. And this is quite negotiable. But the truth of the matter is that you can only negotiate it to the extent of what the person that is financing can bear. So for example, if the person buy it for 1,000 naira and is willing to sell it for 1,200 naira as an example, if you say that you will only buy for 1,100 naira and I feel it's not worth it for me, then I can decline. So what I'm trying to say is that we have the cost price and we have the profit element of it. Then we have the selling price. So the selling price will include the cost price of acquiring the assets and my own profit that I've added to the asset because it's business. So it's important that we want the asset first, then we sell it to you. Then we give you the timeline to pay, which is what will have been agreed by both of us. So if you're going to pay within 6 months in instrumental payment of monthly basis, or you're going to pay en bulk, maybe just once after 1 month. So depending on what you agree, it simply is what the question is asking, and this particular transaction is Sharia compliant, and it is termed as Mudarabah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Habib, for that question. Haja, over to you. Haja, please. And for the panelists, let's just try and I know we are very broad in this, but let's just try and limit our responses. Time is fast spent. Haja, this is for you. Someone Sheikh is asking that crypto investments permitted under this kind of Mudarabah contract, or are there specific exclusions for certain types of funding? So I'll take it again. Are crypto investments permitted under Mudarabah contracts, or are there specific exclusion for certain types of funding?
But I think cryptocurrency altogether is still, I should say that a budding instrument, or call it whatever name we can call it here. So you can't straight jacket answer to say, well, it's under Mudarabah or Musharaka or whatever. It has its own kind of assessment, and it has its own kind of unique features that you can't easily just throw it under Mudarabah. You may want to apply the fact that someone is bringing the money, someone is doing the service, but at the same time, cryptocurrency does not work exactly like that. So it still is a bit unique that you can't throw in under Mudarabah.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you
Okay,
very
so
much. for your
Abdelatif,
Yeah.
let me just make a
Habib?
few comments about crypto. The way crypto operates, or let's say similar to a currency, which is like a digital currency. You see, there is something in the Islamic finance or halal investment. There need to be an underlying asset. You don't trade on currency. So when you look at the way crypto is basically a currency that people buy and is highly speculative. So this is what we call gara. So when you look at it, sometimes the scholar will advise that this is not even Sharia compliant. So not to talk of investing in it. So I wonder how people invest in it. People invest in speculation. So maybe they buy it now, expecting it to go up, because ordinarily it operates like a digital currency. So it's not actually an asset in its real self that we are supposed to invest in. Just like I explained earlier, the example I gave, the underlying asset is the fertilizer. So how do you invest in crypto, which is like a digital currency? And when you look at it, it's highly risky because of the uncertainty and the speculative behind it. So just to add to what Aja said. Thank you.
Sorry, I need to make a comment here. And it's very important because I'm also working with the Central Bank of Nigeria on the digital currency side. Crypto are different from digital currency. They're not the same. So there's a cryptocurrency and there's digital currency. We can take the hard-earned Naira note today and digitalize it. So it will still be the same value and it only serving a medium of exchange. Like my brother Habib has said, the only role it plays, that money plays, is that it is a medium of exchange. You don't trade money for money without any underlying asset. It doesn't make any sense. Now, cryptocurrency on the other side, it's a currency that has been created and they have also made it a product that can be mined without no definite underlying assets. So scholars have put it as non-permissible. So there's the part that is digital currency. So I can have my Naira as digital currency and I can be using it to buy product from Habib and he's using it to buy product from me. Like the e-Naira. The e-Naira today is a digital currency. So we can use it to trade among ourselves. But when you take it to crypto, then you're talking something completely different, because you are not using it as a medium of exchange. You're also using it as a medium of creating wealth without an underlying asset, which is not permissible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Haja, Habib, Jibril, Dr. Jibril. Thank you very much, Sheikh, for the question. Your question brought some responses from everybody. Thank you. The next question, still with Dr. Jibril, from Ganiat Adebayo. So thank you, Dr. Jibril. Can you please quickly explain the difference between Ijara Sukuk and Mudarabah Sukuk, and how private organizations such as Norrenberger can leverage on this? So, sir, Ghania wants to know, Can you please explain the difference between Ijara Sukuk and Mudarabah Sukuk and how private organizations such as Norrenberger can represent it?
Okay, so
Thank
I
you.
hope at the end of this, we will have to force Norrenberger to give us both sukuk. It's for us both sukuk product. You give us an Ijara sukuk and you also give us a Mudarabah sukuk at the end of this. And we look forward to that. We're encouraging you, we're seeing what you're doing, and we're happy with you. And we hope you'll be able to come with more product for us in that regard. Okay, so quickly, the Ijara sukuk is all the federal government sukuk that we have seen so far are Ijara sukuk. We are sovereign sukuk and Ijara sukuk because they are leasing sukuk. They are based on the principle of leasing. And in every lease, you have a leasee and a leaser. So what we do is rental is then paid on it. For those of us who subscribe to the first set of sukuk, I'm sure day before yesterday, we all got alerts. Yes, we all got alerts. So that's it. And so it has, like Brother Habib has explained earlier on, it has a tenure, it's tenured. And it also has a rate. The rate is also determined to be around the NPR. And it is then given, then earn your rentals as at when due. So it is purely a rental that you earn from it, and it is based on a lease contract. So it's a lease contract. While the Mudarabah Sukuk is purely a profit and loss sharing contract. One is lease, which gives you a guarantee return. The other one is profit and loss, which gives you more return, but you may not make profits. Now, it is a function of three things. One, people choose either of the two for three reasons. One, you have to look at your age before you invest. And that is why going to a company like Norrenberger to go and speak to them is very important. If I go to them and I say, I want to invest my 10 million naira, the rate they will give to me and the rate they will give to Abdul Latif, the way they will discuss with both of us will be different. Because they will tell me that, okay, we probably sure that you need a regular income and that your children will be in school and that they will be coming for this and that. Yeah, so they will look at that. They will also look at my risk appetite. How much risk am I willing to take? Don't forget that earlier in the discussion, I told you, I said anything that is very risky now, I'm very careful. Yes, so they will look at my risk appetite. How much risk am I willing to take? When I was 25, I could assume a lot of risk. But now that I'm almost knocking at something different, I'm going to be very careful the kind of risk I want to knock on. So they look at that, and they also look at the tenure. So your risk, amount of risk you are willing to take also determine the amount of return that you're going to get. So if you want a fixed return, which is guaranteed, now your return is going to be much smaller than somebody who is willing to put in so much in terms of risk taking. So those are the different. One is profit and loss, while the other is on lease rental. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. We're coming to the end, so we'll just take one question, answer some here myself because these are just very small questions. Isa says, Isa, you're talking of how much what's the minimum amount you can invest. If you're listening, Hajia told you that at least at 5,000 naira you can, so you can come to Norrenberger at least at 5,000 or more. We would assist you, walk you through the journey. As I told you earlier at the beginning, we're masters in wealth creation and halal investment. We're also well skilled there, so we would do this. Haja, just quickly in 1 minute, Abiodo Aminu is asking that what are the available businesses that someone can invest in and the range of amounts to be invested and the time frame. So I'll answer for him. We told you, Haji has already told us with at least 5,000 and you can get started. But he said, what are the available businesses and what's the time frame for this?
But I guess Mr. Ayub is better with that, since that would be Norrenberger specific, isn't it?
So he was just talking in a broader view as well. So not for
Oh,
Norrenberger. He was talking in a broader view. It was not specific.
okay. So
But
the
we can also
question
break it
is,
back
what kind
later.
of businesses?
Yeah, what are the available
Okay, what kind
businesses
of
that
businesses
somebody
that we
can do?
can invest in? Well, I would say that it depends on where someone has the exposure, where someone is familiar with. Because in deciding where to put the money, it should be that you have an idea of what the business is actually doing, not just throwing your fund, whether you want to do it on your own or you want to actually invest with someone else where you are practicing Mudarabah. It's important that you understand it. For instance, if you're looking at my own background, what I'm familiar with is what I would mention to you, which may not be applicable to you, but I do know that the tech space is a very interesting place to play at the moment, where you can have a very huge ROI. And of course, it's as risky too, like we've mentioned in the course of this conversation. So you have to be prepared for the risk that it comes with. And of course, another thing that I've noticed that people struggle with is the extension period, where you want it to happen quickly. More often than not, businesses don't start today and then peak same day. There is always a process to it. And in fact, sometimes part of the process is that you get your hands burnt and then you try again, again, and again. The attitude is I'm a step closer, even when you make mistakes, even when you make some errors, even when things fail. You know that you're a step closer to destination. And eventually, like in my place, they say that if you stay long enough in the market, you eventually make profit. So let failure not deter you. Let it not stop you from trying again. Truth is, we all should try to do something. While we're asking for the leaders, while we're asking for what should be done for us, what we deserve, we should always be thinking what we can do. We all can do something. That's the truth. Allah has sent all of us with a unique talent. So we all should try to identify what that is and what way we can actually be useful to the universe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hajia. So we've come to the end. We still have more questions. For whoever has questions, somebody's saying, how can you contact Norrenberger? Well, you can send an email to customer service at norrenberger.com. You could visit our website, www.norrenberger.com. We're also very active on social media platforms such as Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Just search Norrenberger and you definitely see us. Thank you very much, our esteemed panelists. And Habib, could you just in 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, just give us just a message for potential investors in this that I've heard you, heard Dr. Jibril, I've heard IGR. Just try and give a bit of encouragement to potential investors on halal investing. Just in 30 seconds, just give a word of encouragement to them.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdulatif. What I would just say is that there's so much opportunities in the halal investment, and it even give profit than what most of us expect. Because sometimes people have been fixated in the conventional investment because of the fixed return. So also another important thing is that even though we have different type of investment in halal, like the Mudarabah does not have fixed return, is a profit sharing investment partnership where you can even get more than what you've expected. Imagine yourself getting like 100%. 100% profit. So you invest, like, for example, 100 naira, you get 200 naira as profit, which quite huge. Maybe you can only get maybe like in the range of 15, 16, or depending on what a conventional gives you as fixed return. That's on one side. Also, you can actually get a fixed return somehow when you go for a Jara contract, like the Jara Sukuk that you mentioned, and that is a fixed return because these people pay rentals on the Ijara. So these are ways you can get return. At Norrenberger, now we have the Mudarabah, which is our land investment notes, where you can invest and share in profit with us. Another product we have is the Norrenberger Islamic Fund, which is a collective investment scheme, a mutual fund where you can invest. You can even start with as low as 5,000 naira. You can always also get a quarterly dividend on the investment. So these are ways and other things that you can use your money for. So it's money that you're not using currently. So these are the things we expect from you. You can invest, mobilize them, and make it useful, and also get something in return for it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Habib. Thank you very much to all our esteemed panelists, Habib Oyewole, Dr. Jibril Salaudeen, Haja Shakira Tanima Shaun. And just for the questions, there will be recording of this made available, and you can also send in your questions to us. Send in your questions to us if you have more questions. Maybe if you thought about the sessions or you listened in, send in your questions to us. We provided our email, customer service at norrenberger.com. We'll be happy to answer all your questions. If you have questions for Dr. Jibril, if you have questions for Ajia, specific questions for them, we would have them answer and send back to you. So thank you very much for all your questions, your contributions. Really appreciate it. And we'll have more on this in the coming future where we look to discuss halal investing and other forms of investing. Norrenberger has other forms of investments. We help businesses, we help people create wealth and all that. So thank you very much, everybody. It has been a very lovely and insightful session. Yes, in the chat box, you can contact us at enquiries@norrenberger.com, customer service at norrenberger.com. The phone number is there. Our head office is at number 11 Volta Street, Maitama, Abuja. We also have offices in Lagos and Port Harcourt. So thank you very much, everybody. Please send in your questions. If you have more questions, we're happy to take your questions. And then till next time, thank you very much. And goodbye. Have a good day. Thank you.